In today's video, I'll be showing you the point where net worth stops being a measure of success and starts to become a predictor of future tax compression. And for most Americans, that threshold sits between $1 and $2 million in tax-deferred savings. Through working with clients who have crossed this level, I've discovered that the U.S. tax code doesn't care how much wealth you've built. It cares when and where that wealth turns into taxable income. And once you're above a certain amount, the government has already scheduled when and how much they're going to take back. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to show you why net worth above this threshold doesn't give you more control, but actually requires more sequencing to avoid giving a third of it back to the IRS. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben Brandt. I've been a financial advisor for almost 20 years focusing on retirement planning, and I want to help make your retirement even better. So when someone tells me they've crossed that $1.5 million mark in pre-tax accounts, my first reaction is always celebration, right? Because that's no small feat. But then my very next thought is that it's time to buckle down and maybe pivot our focus. Because once we're at and beyond that range, net worth really stops being just a scorecard and it starts to become a predictor of future income. And of course, the IRS does not tax net worth, they tax our income. So that needs to be our focus or needs to change our focus. So you can sit on $1.5 or maybe $2 million and you can pay very little taxes if you control when and how it converts into income. The key phrase is you retaining control. Or alternatively, you can sit on the same amount of money and let the system dictate the timing. And over the next 20, 30 years, you quietly give up, about a third of it. So net worth is the snapshot. The IRS sees the cash flow. And that distinction is really important and it starts to change everything. So above that roughly $1.5 million mark in traditional IRAs and 401ks, you have entered a different phase of retirement planning. Your accounts are no longer just sitting quietly in the background. They are scheduled to become taxable. So if you like hockey, the metaphor would be the regular season is over and now we're in the playoffs, right? The stakes are much higher. So required minimum distributions are going to begin. We're going to start seeing our income stacking. That's a lot more likely. Benefit phase-outs start happening. And the system starts pushing money onto your tax return, whether you need it or not. Those are required minimum distributions. Beyond a certain point, what you have on your balance sheet matters a little bit less, and how it shows up as income on your tax return matters more. And once you understand that, retirement planning shifts from accumulation to sequencing and distribution. So let's put some numbers to this. If you have about $1.5 million in traditional retirement accounts, your first required minimum distribution is at age 73, and it's going to be around $56,000. That's not my math or my guess. That's just based on IRS life expectancy tables. Now, if your RMD age is 75, your first RMD is going to be closer to about $61,000 on that same $1.5 million. Now, just two quick reminders. RMD stands for required minimum distribution. I always my brain thinks in terms of abbreviations and acronyms. People hate that, so they always leave in the comments. I want to make sure that I'm spelling out what everything means, required minimum distributions. And RMD tables changed recently, and they're going to be different for different people depending on when you were born, right? So if you were born in 1959 or earlier, you're going to start at 73. If you are 1960 or later, you're going to be 75. So just two quick housekeeping items there. Now, if you want to play with a simple RMD calculator that I made, I will link it in the video description so you can say, here's my starting balance, here's the rate of return I expect to earn, and then follow it down and you can see at 73 and 75 what you think. So if that's helpful for you, it's a free download for you. Now, here's something important to think about. That $56,000 I mentioned as an RMD earlier, it does not exist in isolation. It stacks, income stacking. It stacks on top of Social Security. It stacks on top of your dividends and interest. It stacks on top of capital gains, any part-time work or consulting income that you're doing. It all stacks together. So even if your account never grows again, that withdrawal percentage of your RMD is going to increase every year, right? So by age 80, that forced distribution might be $70,000 or $80,000 per year or more. And again, like I said, it hits your tax return whether you need the money or not. Let's walk through a simple example. Imagine $56,000 in RMDs and $40,000 in Social Security. So you're already at $96,000 of income before we've done any other spending, before we've touched a brokerage account, before dividends, capital gains, earned income, anything expected or unexpected, we're already at $96,000. That's how retirees who don't feel wealthy suddenly find themselves in the 22 or maybe even the 24% income tax bracket. They didn't overspend or do something reckless. They just have slowly lost control of their income due to RMDs. So RMDs alone can push you into those higher income tax brackets, but RMDs alone are not the full story. Once income stacks, secondary effects start kicking in. The first to think about is IRMA. That's the income-related monthly adjustment amount for Medicare. Medicare premiums are based on your income from 2 years prior. So decisions that you make at age 71 are then going to show up on your Medicare bill at age 73. Now, personally, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I'm supposed to remember my exact income from 2 years ago. Well, yes, unfortunately, those are the rules we have to play by. Speaking of IRMA, Once you cross through certain thresholds, you can add anywhere from a couple $1,000s to several $1,000s per year in additional Medicare premiums. Most retirees don't necessarily fully connect their IRA withdrawals to their Medicare statement until they see those increases. Again, increases based on withdrawals from 2 years ago. Then, of course, there's the taxation of your Social Security. Up to 85% of your benefits can become taxable. And provisional income includes half of your Social Security plus all of your other income, including RMDs. Now, at some of these savings levels that we're discussing, most retirees are going to quickly hit that 85% inclusion threshold. Now, the benefit that they thought would be only partially taxed now becomes fully taxable because everything's taxed together. That is what I mean by tax compression. None of this, of course, shows up in your net worth statement, right? None of it feels incredibly dramatic in one single year, but income stacking quietly pulls more of your retirement cash flow into taxation than I think most people anticipate at the start of things. Now that you see how some of these penalties stack up at this savings level, if you want to work with us on building a plan that accounts for all of this, you might be interested in our Retire Ready Blueprint, and there's a link at the bottom of the video where you can click to learn more. Now, of course, the best time to get out ahead of this tax compression is usually in your 60s, in your early 60s. And that's before RMDs begin, before Social Security starts to stack on top of those RMDs, and before IRMA thresholds start to become part of our reality and start triggering automatic increases. In that window, your income is often temporarily lower than your working years, and it's definitely more flexible. That's where Roth conversions can really start to make sense. Converting to Roth at 22% in your 60s can feel very different than being forced to take income in the 24 or 32% bracket later on in your 70s or your 80s because RMDs have begun and have pushed you through those higher tax levels. What I see frequently is retirees who thought that they were being conservative by preserving their IRA, right? They spend from their brokerage accounts, they spend from their Roth IRAs first, and they let that traditional IRA grow untouched. It sounds smart and it actually keeps their taxes low for a time, but what they're actually doing is just kicking the can down the road, and they're inflating those future required distributions and they're inflating their future tax bill. A larger IRA simply means larger RMDs, right? Larger RMDs mean more income stacking, and then more income stacking then leads to more IRMA and Social Security taxation. In the same way that your investments compound, well, your tax exposure compounds right along with it. And for retirees that aren't on top of this, by the time they realize that there is a problem, that conversion window is already either fully or effectively closed, or at least it's much smaller. There's actually another layer that often gets overlooked. If we're married, we start retirement as Creedence Clearwater Revival, and we end retirement as John Fogerty. When one spouse passes away, that surviving spouse shifts from married filing jointly to single filer status. Their income sometimes decreases, but many of their shared expenses stay the same. All right, think about your household expenses, property taxes, home insurance, car insurance, etc. This effect is often called the widow's tax. And really the trickiest part of managing the widow's tax is that RMDs don't disappear. Granted, the smaller of your Social Security benefits as a couple, that's going to go away. But depending on the size of your IRAs, that might not be a meaningful decrease in your total taxable income. But the taxable structure of going from married filing jointly to filing single, that's a dramatic change, right? Your brackets, the width of your brackets are cut roughly in half, both for your marginal tax brackets and for your IRMA brackets. Also, your standard deduction gets cut in half. So that same amount of income that we talked about earlier, let's say it's a $60,000 RMD on top of $35,000 in Social Security, right? That used to fit very comfortably in one bracket as a married couple, but that we might land in a very different place, a much higher place as a single filer. The income might not change at all, but your effective tax rate certainly did change. It went up often by a lot. So the surviving spouse can end up paying significantly more in taxes on essentially the same income stream. And most couples really never model this out ahead of time because it's just not an easy thing to plan for timeline-wise, and honestly, it's not a fun thing to talk about. Death is not anything anybody wants to talk about. So now that you've seen how the widow's tax trap works, let's talk about what you can actually do about all this to see the full picture. If you're above that $1 to $2 million in tax-deferred assets, as you transition into retirement, the number that matters is not your net worth so much anymore. What matters now is how efficiently you manage your cash flow and how long you personally stay in control of your income. Roth conversions before your RMD age can reduce future forced income. Coordinating Social Security timing with your tax strategy can create even more room to maneuver some of these tax bills. Modeling your IRMA thresholds and your survivor scenarios before you're locked in gives you a lot more flexibility that we know is going to disappear later when the first spouse dies. Now, at this point, strategic sequencing is going to beat blind accumulation. Adding another $100,000 to your net worth might matter less than avoiding a $50,000 tax bill, especially if that's an unnecessary tax bill down the road, right? Two retirees with identical $1.5 million balances can experience outcomes that are significantly different, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference. Now, the difference wouldn't be investment returns, it's how and when income is recognized and how the taxes are paid. If you don't manage the conversion path intentionally, well, the IRS is just going to manage that for you, and that's going to be those required minimum distributions. Now, if you want help with your plan, go ahead and click the link below and check out our Retire Ready Blueprint. But that's what we've got prepared for you this week. Again, my name is Ben Brandt, and I hope this video helps to make your retirement even better, and I'll see you on the next one.